Wow, just like that, back with another Portable Clint. Guys, Portable Clint is about all my favorite actors that I've met along the way, i.e. John Lacy. Get in here, John Lacy. Yeah, you. Wow, look at that. Look at that. Look at these. Yeah. Look at those baby blues he's got.
Oh my goodness! Already starting off with flattery. I love it.
Hey, John.
Hi, Clint.
I'm going to get right into a question.
Can I drink coffee while you talk?
Please. I'm going to be drinking coffee. I've never asked this question before, but last night when I was looking at your headshot, your baby blues did pop out.
Ooh.
Do you feel like that has helped your career at all? Does it help actors with blue eyes is my question.
I'll tell you what helps actors is eyes that are alive, no matter what color they are.
Okay.
Black is a little disarming.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing, The Matrix or any one of the many zombie. You know what? Black's probably awesome because there's a lot of zombie product out there.
There is.
Eyes are everything. Eyes are everything. So self-tapers, actors, this is the most important thing. Everything we do requires stillness because our eyes are the window to the soul, as they say. So blue eyes, I guess. I don't know. I don't think blue eyes are in right now. I think what's in right now is humanity and whatever tells the best story. And this is what we do this is what we work with. So train your whole instrument, but always remember that your eyes have to be lit up. Every time the camera finds you, you got to be on fire.
Man, okay, we're done, dude.
Yep.
You just gave the best interview, so
Good.
we're done.
Let's get that the yellowtail sashimi.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, John Lacy.
Talk to me.
I always like to say what got you started in the business, but I'm going to go back further. Tell me about your grandfather and your father, please, sir.
Oh my goodness, I wish I knew either of my grandfathers. My dad's dad died when he was 5, so he grew up with a single mom in a small town in Texas and lived a very isolated life. His mother was a scientist of all things, if you can believe that, in the 50s. So my dad is still alive, thank God, and is a very, very reputable writer of fiction and essays. But so I never got to know, I never met his dad, and he barely knew him. My mother's dad was a big part of our family, but he passed away when I was 5.
Okay.
Going on 6, coincidentally, when my dad lost his dad. So I never had the luxury of knowing either of my grandfathers. I did have relationships with both of my grandmothers. And another thing amazing about my lineage, I think it's unique, is that both my mom and dad were only children. So we grew up with no cousins, uncles, aunts, which makes for a very small family and kind of unusual. I think most kids grow up with cousins and uncles and aunts, and didn't have that. So
okay, was there a Kurt Vonnegut connection there? I'm not making that up.
No, my dad. When I was born in Iowa City, I grew up in Minnesota. Minneapolis is what I kind of call home in terms of where I came from to Los Angeles. But my father was at the Iowa Writers Workshop, which thankfully to this day is still a reputable a training ground for aspiring novelists and creative writing. And my dad was there in the mid-'60s, and I was born there. And at the time, he was in the graduate program, in the writing program, and his 2 teachers were Kurt Vonnegut, who we all know, and even more esteemed and even more impressive to the writers at that time was Richard Yates, who was taken more seriously. Vonnegut was already a bit of a commodity because he'd been published a couple times, but he was kind of an odd writer. He was dabbling in science fiction and had a very unique style. The Hemingway of the group, the F. Scott Fitzgerald of the group, was Richard Yates, who wrote Revolutionary Road and Easter Parade and the brilliant short story collection 11 Kinds of Loneliness. Richard Yates just happened to be my godfather because he was a mentor to my dad and a very, very close friend. And Richard Yates has been part of my family legacy from the beginning, and I take a lot of pride in coming from that ground.
As you should. All right,
thank you. I love talking about that.
Let's talk about you, though.
If we must.
Yes. Tell me when you were inspired by Hollywood, not when you moved out here, but the very first. I'm like, wait a second, I got to get a part of that.
You ask great questions, Clint. I knew this was going to be fun.
Yeah.
Man, and I've always been a fan of this guy. Clint Culp has been part of the landscape of Hollywood for me since the beginning.
I'm about to say the same thing, but please go
brother.
ahead.
We have parallel paths in a lot of ways in terms of when we came out here and the success we both had in commercials. So I have nothing but love for you as well.
Thank you, brother.
I loved movies when I was a kid. I was not into drama or plays or into that. I was more of a jock. I played baseball and I played hockey in Minnesota and basketball at one point in my life. But I always loved cinema, and where I really learned what I loved about cinema and what my own aesthetic was, without even knowing that I was going to eventually lean on this aesthetic, was tearing tickets at a really great, kind of the flagship movie theater in Minnesota at the time was called the Cooper Cameo. Anyone from Minneapolis in the 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s would know the Cooper Cameo. St. Louis Park, Minnesota, where the Coen brothers are from.
Okay.
St. Louis Park had a beautiful, beautiful theater, an exclusive theater, where if a film was only going to run on one screen, say a major release, for instance, E.T. at the time, E.T. ran on the Cooper big screen for a year straight.
Okay.
It did not leave because it was the one place where you knew you could find E.T. So it was called the Cooper Cameo, Clint, which was genius because it had a big screen, the Cooper, and it had a small screen called the Cameo. The Cooper Cameo.
Yeah, there you go.
So on the Cameo would be smaller films like Baby It's You, or First Monday in October with Walter Matthau, or Chariots of Fire actually got relegated to the smaller screen.
Yeah.
But Clint, working there, I got to see these films over and over again. To see a film like Reds over and over and over again, a film that was written, directed, and produced and starred Warren Beatty. And I'm looking at this film Reds, and I watched it over and over again, and I'm thinking, this one man took this obscure topic about this guy, Jack Reed, who was a journalist at the turn of the century and then got into communist politics and then went over to Russia, and it became this fantastic story that against all odds, Warren Beatty turned into this massive Oscar-winning epic called Reds with Diane Keaton and Gene Hackman and Jack Nicholson. I saw Reds 300 times, and it really told me what a quality film looked like. Of course, grew up on films like The Great Escape and The Guns of Navarone and those great war epics that would come out, even stuff like, obviously Wizard of Oz and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and stuff that would come out every year, and you'd wait for it to come on TV.
Yep.
But here I am tearing tickets at the Cooper Cameo in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, and watching excellent films like Chariots of Fire and Reds. I learned to have what I think is still exceptional taste in cinema.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't then go to college to pursue anything in the dramatic arts, I actually went to college at St. Cloud State, Minnesota to pursue journalism and mass communication. Once I decided I wanted to become an actor and moved to LA, it wasn't long after that I really decided what I really want to do is write and direct. Writing comes naturally because of my mother and father. But I had it in me to also be a storyteller for the screen, and I leaned back on the films that I grew up with at this movie theater.
Absolutely, and I bet you still do.
Oh, absolutely. Warren Beatty is still a hero of mine. And yes, so those were the films that I sharpened my teeth on in terms of subconsciously developing an aesthetic of, and a standard, I think is a better word than aesthetic, a standard of what makes good cinema.
Okay, so what makes you start thinking to move out to Hollywood? And how old were you?
Okay, so I told you I went to college. That made me sound like I had actually some intelligence, intelligence. I think I do have intelligence, but that I'm educated.
Right.
I dropped out of college.
Okay.
It was about.
I forgot to go. So
okay.
There's that.
You know what? I think you probably saved some money that my parents wasted on my first 2 years. I got to college and wanted to do. Where are you looking, by the way? Are we ever looking in here?
This is the third person. It's just you and I.
We can just talk.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like I should be including them.
But you are. I mean,
are you feeling left out?
No, they're good. They're good.
The guy in the back?
Yeah, look at that guy.
He's pissed.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I know him.
Yeah, you did, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Son of a bitch.
Yep. All right.
Yeah. Went to college. Quickly realized I didn't want to be a journalist. There was the very first story I wrote for the newspaper, my editor rewrote my opening paragraph, and I ran to the box and opened it up. I couldn't wait to read this article, my first article, and I didn't recognize it, but it had my byline. I thought, this is bullshit. This is what my life's going to be. I've got to submit my work, and some editor gets to have the final say over what I do. So I literally, as a freshman in college, Clint, at St. Cloud State, which is a semi-decent school north of Minneapolis, I literally had to take this job and shove it moment. Dropped out of the mass communications, unbeknownst to my parents. Hung out a year and a half because I knew I had some partying to do. I knew I had some oats to sow, so to speak.
Sure.
And then I moved to Hawaii. I moved to Waikiki with a couple of buddies in 1984.
Okay.
And 84, 85, because I actually went to college for 2 years. Spent a year in Waikiki, but it was waiting tables in Waikiki and realizing that I had some kind of a gift for storytelling and showmanship, because when you're at a tourist place like Waikiki, all you're getting is tourists, and you become a little bit of a concierge. So I found myself spending a lot of time talking to the same people over and over again that would come back to hear more and more about what I suggested to do on the island. And what I realized was they liked either the sound of my voice or the way I told stories. And it hit me, I swear to God, Clint, I remember it like it was yesterday. Hit me like a lightning bolt. I was opening a bottle of wine at a restaurant called the Blue Dolphin Room in Waikiki, right next to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. I had Diamond Head behind me. I had the Pacific Ocean. I could even see Japan far off in the distance. No, I couldn't actually. My eyesight was good, but not that good. And I was opening this bottle of wine, and suddenly I paused in the middle of opening this bottle of wine, and I thought, why didn't I think of that before? I'm going to move to Los Angeles and become an actor.
Okay.
And then I moved to Maui. I got an opportunity to move to Maui, work in a 5-star restaurant, socked away some dough, moved to Maui for a year, put aside $5,000 and moved to Los Angeles in July of 1987 to pursue acting.
Wow. You beat me by 2 months. I got here
I
September
knew we had
of 87.
There you go. Wow, I knew our timeline was eerily similar, but
Yes.
that's crazy.
That is
Yeah.
crazy. And I want to tell you about you when you were put onto my radar. Okay?
Let's hear it, because this is going to be a surprise to me.
I started going to auditions, and I worked at the Actor Center on Ventura
Yeah,
Boulevard.
I remember it.
That's where Danielle Eskenazi
Yep.
casted out of,
Yep.
Beth Holmes.
Two legends in the commercial casting
and they're
game.
still around,
Yeah.
and they're
Yep.
still playing awesome.
Yeah.
I used to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you work for one of them? I don't know in my head.
I ran sessions, never
Yes.
there, but I ran sessions for Danielle a lot at HKM.
Okay, see, I'm getting, okay.
HKM on Ivar.
Yes, of course.
I always called it the
course,
casting
yes.
submarine because you went downstairs and it felt like time stood still and it was actually a
I
bank,
loved it.
remember
I loved it, yes.
I know you did very well there. And
We both did.
Yeah, that was when I started seeing a lot. So the luxury of me running sessions.
Well, I don't want to get too ahead of
Okay.
ourselves. I want to take it step by step.
So go ahead and finish your story,
So-
but that's where it was probably at HKM.
Okay, I remember seeing you and like kind of being in awe of you, right? Like, oh wow, dude, there's something about this guy. Something about
man,
this guy.
that's very generous of you.
And I'm not kidding you, John Lacy. I'm not just making this up. And then I go to the movie theater and I see Dragon, Bruce
yeah.
Lee story.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
that's that guy I see at auditions. That's that guy right
Yeah.
there. My mind was
And I
blown.
actually, on the big screen, no
Yes,
less.
on the big screen,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
that guy made it. He made it.
Wow,
he made
I love it.
And dude, and
This
I
is
was
really
in
cool.
awe of you ever since then. And I'm not
Wow.
kidding you.
Thank
were
you,
like the
man.
very
You've never
first
told me
person-
that.
Well, you were like the very first person who I met and then saw in
So
a
it was
movie.
tangible.
Yes, and it was like, wow.
Wow.
And you always stood out from that moment until today.
Wow,
So just
man.
know that.
Can I share the significance of that booking?
Please.
Because it was memorable in a lot of ways. It was obviously very cool to see myself on the big screen, having only been in LA for a few years,
Yeah, man.
Right, so that was
That was like
1990.
1990. And okay, so wait, back
Yeah.
up one second. What year did you get out here?
87, right before you.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. 87 was the very first time you got your agent. That's what I meant to ask.
I got an agent in 87 right away. And my SAG card, it says I joined SAG in 88. So what was your must join job when you?
It was 88 also.
What was the job?
There was a strike. You remember the strike in
Of course,
87?
we've been through many of them. I do
Well,
remember.
this was the 87 strike, and the guy goes, hey, man, you should go do some non-union work. I go, I don't know anything
Yeah.
about union, non-union.
Yeah.
So I actually did a non-union job during that strike. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't
Yeah.
know better.
Yeah.
I was 18 years
We're
old.
done. We're done here.
We're done here.
Yeah.
So it was for Fred Peterman. You remember Peterman
Kind of.
Decter?
Oh,
Peterman
of course, yeah. Leslie
did it.
Decter was a big ally
Yes.
of mine. Yep.
And so I didn't know better, honest to God. I mean, I'm a kid from Texas. I don't know that I'm crossing the line. I don't know anything. But I don't. It's not about me though. But he brings me back a month later, and I book a gig through the union. That was my must join. That was the answer.
Wow.
Let's not make it about me.
No, but that's interesting. We all have that job.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so a few months later, you get an agent. Tell me, I want to know the walk up to that booking.
Dragon.
Yes,
Good.
that you're about to tell me.
I can tell you how I got the agent, and then when the serendipitous good fortune that I had that a lot of actors don't have when they come to town, and it's never lost on me, and I never take it for granted, because I did hit the ground running, and I think a lot of actors don't, and I understand that, and I think what I offer my acting students in my studio is applicable to anyone, with the understanding that I did have some good fortune. It was a guy that I met in Waikiki before I even moved to Maui. and then moved to LA. And this guy that I met in Waikiki ended up being my first roommate in Los Angeles, a year and a half removed from when I met him. And I didn't know then who he was. I found out, of course, when he becomes my roommate who he was, and he was the youngest son of a legendary photographer named Milton Green. Milton Green was Marilyn Monroe's closest friend and an ally and a confidant, and Milton Green was the celebrity photographer of the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Okay, I gotta look him up.
Yeah, he's connected oftentimes with Marilyn. He actually produced a film called The Prince and the Showgirl with Olivier and Marilyn Monroe. So Milton Green was a legend. I didn't know that that's who I was living with until I moved in with him. Anthony knew a lot of people, so I got an agent right away. I started going on auditions. I clearly didn't have any chops, any training. I started taking classes. My first class was M.K. Lewis, and then of course I did Beverly Long. Remember Beverly Long?
Yes, of course.
I did.
Wow.
I stuck my nose in the groundlings for a while. I wanted to see what the terrain was and what was going to be right for me. I ended up landing in a specialized small class that was not a 2-year program for Meisner, but I ended up having a man named Stu Schreiber who at the time took an interest in me and taught me Meisner. All of that was happening in the first 3 years I got here. And while that was happening, Clint, I was getting auditions, which, as most actors know, it seems like it's an obvious thing to say, well, just go get auditions and get jobs. You got to get an agent. The agent has to have the relationships.
Really
you have to get the right auditions. And back in those days, they only saw so many actors. Now, because of self-tapes, they can see so many. But
and they saw only union people at that time. When it was a union job, this wasn't hey, everybody come in and we'll figure it out.
No, they weren't cattle
later.
calls.
Yeah.
If you got an audition for a co-star, there were going to be maybe 20 guys.
Yep.
A guest star, maybe 12.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
A film, sometimes maybe 6, 8, 10. And the film might take 10 months for them to book you.
Yeah.
Because films have this weird gestation, incubation, where they just kind of stumble along. Commercials and television happen on a schedule, right?
Yeah.
So I'm booking. Right out of the gate, I booked a couple of commercials.
What was the first booking?
First booking, the booking that got me my SAG card was China Beach, and I didn't work on the TV show China Beach. I worked on the promo. Remember how you go for promos?
Yes, absolutely.
So the opening of China Beach, if you remember, it showed this sunset in Vietnam and China Beach, right? Ominous, kind of like Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And then you'd see rapid fire. These 3 guys, they were GIs, grab surfboards and run to the beach. I was one of those guys grabbing a surfboard and running to the beach, and that's the only moment you saw me. I got paid for the opening of China Beach for as long as it ran.
Are you serious,
And that was my must-join SAG job.
Are you serious?
So, that was it.
Wow.
And then the first commercial I did was a Miller Lite commercial with Bob Uecker, and we shot that at the San Francisco Saloon, which sadly is no longer here. And that was a Tim Newman job, who was Debbie Kurtz.
Yes.
Debbie Kurtz and Tim Newman.
Wow.
So the first gig that got me my union card was China Beach. The first commercial I did was Miller Lite. First speaking moment I had on television for a TV show was General Hospital. And then I got a couple of film roles.
Wait, you did something at the very beginning with Rodney Dangerfield. What was that?
Oh, that was awesome, man. That was through Anthony Green, who knew Rodney Dangerfield's daughter. And they hired me to be a security guard at the Beverly Hills Hotel and to come escort Rodney out of the poolside because he was annoying Corbin Bernsen and some other celebrities. And he was ingratiating himself to a table. And of course, Rodney Dangerfield gets no respect. So they were trying to get rid of him, and they called security. And I got to come in and strong-arm Rodney Dangerfield. and then, of course, I got to go see him do stand-up a couple nights later as a VIP with the whole crew. So, great gig, man. To have Rodney Dangerfield on my resume to this day.
Yeah.
Very proud of that.
Right.
And Matlock,
I know, dude. I wanted to talk to you about Matlock.
To still have Andy Griffith on my resume.
Did you talk to Andy Griffith?
Of course, yeah.
Tell me something good about the Andy Griffith meeting.
Couldn't have been more of a gentleman. He was an ambassador for the industry and couldn't have been nicer.
Sure
the friend that I came away from, who passed away a few years ago, sadly, was Art LaFleur. Remember Art?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, from Sandlot and from so many.
Yes, beautiful man. I love that guy.
Art LaFleur was fantastic, and he became a friend and an ally for years. So he was my scenes were with Art LaFleur. So those were great gigs leading up to Dragon. The great thing about Dragon, if I can tell you, for actors out there, and I imagine that's a lot of your audience, and I hope you have a big audience because you have a lot to offer.
Thank you.
We don't compete with each other. We're allies.
That is true.
Clint and I. In a lot of ways, we were the same type. We were going up for the same stuff. I would say Clint definitely had a more of an in on comedy. Clint he could lean into the comedy quickly. I could do it, but I think I lean more towards just the everyman.
Sure.
right? But we
Yeah.
still ran up.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
still went up for a lot of the same
And,
stuff.
and like you said, we were never against each
No.
other. We were all like, dude, go get it. Go
get
in there and get it. Dude.
And even when someone is very close to your type, embrace your fellow actors. The cool thing about Dragon, this is what I want to say, and we'll move on from it if you want. There were a couple of guys, two guys in particular that I was up for everything against. I'm saying against as in one of us was going to get it. A guy named Eric Bruscotter, who had a quick leg up because he was in Major League. He was the catcher in Major League.
And also one of my favorite movies.
Crimson Tide.
No. Can't Buy Me Love.
There you go. Very, very good. Very good. Which also I think has Pete Koch.
Yes,
My good friend Pete Koch.
yes.
So Eric Bruscotter and a guy named Michael Cudlitz.
Which one remind me of that guy?
Michael Cudlitz?
Yes,
Well, he's
I
had a
know
great career.
I know.
He was in Walking Dead. He was in his own show called Southland, Two Cops.
Yes.
His big break was Band of Brothers.
Yes.
So Michael Cudlitz, Eric Bruscotter, and John Lacy would go up for everything.
Yep. I
and
could see you guys over there.
And we'd always say to each other, you know, is it your turn or not? And never in a sense of kind of trying to sabotage one another. Always a sense of one of us is going to get it.
Yeah.
It's probably your turn. All three of us got Dragon. We all read for the role that Eric got, which was the bully that goes up to Bruce Lee in the gym and starts to call him out on racial commentary, because there's obviously no Chinese at the University of Washington at that time.
Sure.
So Eric Bruscotter got the lead bully, but Michael Cudlitz and I were cast as his backups, his doppelganger kind of goons. And Rob Cohen, the director, chose all three of us. So I look back on that and say, what a great opportunity to work with the two guys that I always was up against, and we all three got to work on the same film. And the great thing about film, and the great thing about film is it's there forever.
Yep.
TV shows are too, but film, like you're still talking about Dragon, films go on forever, and they always end up meaning something to someone. And I actually, at the time, I thought it was a pretty good film.
It was, dude. I enjoyed it.
The sad part about it was it came out right when Brandon Lee got killed.
I know. I remember
simultaneously.
Yes.
As if the Bruce Lee curse was really legit.
I remember people talking about that.
And it sucked for our film because it didn't offer. I mean, it's obviously a tragedy, so that's neither here nor there, really. But it didn't boost our film. It kind of dragged our film into something that just seemed like a sad, morose tale that no one. It didn't do what I think they thought it was going to do. And Lauren Holly was great in it, and I thought Jason Scott Lee was fantastic in it.
Okay, you do that in 1990, right? And do you think your career? Do you think you made it at that time?
No, the one that no, thank you though, because I knew I wasn't glorified extra work because I had a couple lines of dialogue, and I knew why they offered it to me. And Rob Cohen explained to Michael Cudlitz and I, hey, thanks for taking these. I know you wanted the bigger part.
Sure.
But it was a pretty small gig. The gig I thought was going to be at least a little bit of a springboard was Dogfight with River Phoenix.
Okay, I was going to get to that.
And it's a cult film. There was a film that didn't find an audience for a very specific reason, and it was that female director at the time, which was almost unheard of.
Sure.
Fought for an ending that was. Have you seen Dogfight?
Yeah.
It's a very ambiguous, sad, bleak ending that is not at all a triumphant boy meets girl kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder kind of feel good ending, which is what the studios were known for at the time, right? And Nancy Savoca fought for her ending, and Warner Brothers ended up deciding to give in to her. And her punishment was they didn't put a nickel into advertising for it. The film got no PR and no push. And consequently, it died on the vine, and it lasted, I think, maybe less than 2 weeks on the big screen. And thank God it has a bit of a cult following because Lily Taylor is exceptional, and River Phoenix, man, he was the James Dean of that era.
That. Okay, just to let you know, I saw that movie in the theater, and I remember seeing you, and I was again star-studded, like, oh my God, there he is again.
Yeah, he's not a one-trick pony.
Right.
No.
Wow. You have a River Phoenix story that we need to hear.
Oh man, not only, yes, I do, and I'm going to tie it into something I just worked on because River was, he was exactly what you'd want him to be in terms of being, because he was the star of the picture, he was generous, he was welcoming, and the other guys that were around him in the film, they'd been there a week earlier than me and gone through a boot camp with Dale Dye.
Oh wow!
The legendary military trainer from
legendary.
all the way to
Full Metal
Jacket and Platoon, obviously.
Yes.
So Dale Dye had put them through the ringer. My character was an outsider. He's written as an outsider. I'm kind of this goofball guy that wants in. I'm trying to get into the clique.
Yep.
So I came in after they already bonded, And the
Did
other
they
guy,
do that on purpose?
yeah, it was.
Okay,
It was
all right.
on purpose, and the other guys treated me as such.
Oh, boy.
But River didn't, because he needed to be the leader of all of us, and he was generous. He bought a used Volvo with his per diem while we were there, so we had a car to drive around, and River would drive us around. We'd go for dinners and drinks. The memory I have the most though was his little brother, Joaquin. At the time was Leaf, and I think he was 12. This
I
is
remember Leaf.
before he'd done Parenthood.
Yep.
So he was Leaf, and he was around a lot, and we stayed at the Warwick Hotel in downtown Seattle. And I have such fond memories of at night when we were obviously wrapped and people were just chilling at the hotel. We'd go meet over in the room. Suddenly we'd end up at River's room, and River and young Leaf, aka Joaquin, they bought some remote control boats, right? And we went down to the pool in Warwick. And we're racing the pool, and I'm basically just watching.
Sure.
I'm just kind of again, my character is an outsider, but I was included because River
that's
included
awesome.
me.
Awesome.
I just remember seeing River and his little brother having fun and being kids and being normal and hanging out. And then we were in the jacuzzi later, and Rob Lowe comes walking by, which is weird because he wasn't in the film, but he was dating our makeup artist, Cheryl Burkhoff, who we ended up marrying.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly it became surreal that suddenly a Rat Pack, one of the Brat Pack,
Yeah.
one of the Brat Pack guys.
Yeah.
The whole thing was cool, and I thought it was going to be a bit of a something for me. And not only did the film not do well, it certainly didn't do much to jettison me to stardom. But if you've never seen Dogfight,
Yeah,
I
you
think
gotta
it's a
check that out.
fantastic
You gotta
film.
check that out.
And I was able to tell. I just worked on Joker. I don't know if you saw that on my
We're gonna
resume.
get to that. We're gonna get to
So
that.
I just worked on Joker Folie à Deux and spent 2.5 months with Joaquin, and I waited till Christmas. I waited till we broke for Christmas to give him a Christmas gift. And in the card I said, I have great memories of you and your big brother in Seattle, stuff that you probably don't remember. I gave him a couple of the memories in the card, and then suffice it to say, I said, he'd be very proud of the actor you've become and the man you've become, and he couldn't have been more emotionally touched by it. So a nice full circle for me to be able to work with Joaquin after knowing his big brother 3 decades earlier. There you go.
All right, I'm going to tell you a quick
Name
story.
dropping has reached an all-time low.
That's beautiful. That's what I want here.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something just off the charts here. I mean, not on the chart, not off the charts, but off the freeway of
Okay.
what we're talking about. I have a great friend named Clay Cook who I grew up with.
Good name.
He looked exactly like River Phoenix.
Wow.
Okay? He and I used
Lucky
to live
guy.
out here. He was my roommate out here. I was here at Farmer's Market, late 90s. We were coming out of the bathroom. Joaquin Phoenix is coming.
No.
He's coming into the bathroom.
Did he?
He stops Clay, my buddy. He goes,
Yeah.
dude, you look just like my brother.
Oh no.
Can I hug you? And they hugged.
That is cool.
And I've never forgotten. And it was that bathroom right over there, dude. And I still today think of it. And here we are talking about Leaf and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
These things have an interesting kind of kismet to them. But the fact that Joaquin thought he looked like River,
Yeah.
River had a unique look.
Yeah.
He had kind of an interesting thing with with his eyes.
Yep.
He had an interesting way of staring at you. What an actor, man! Running on Empty is my favorite River Phoenix film. Big fan, big loss. That was a hard time. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Dogfight, man. Very proud of that.
Okay, so that is the movies. So now how did you hook up with the guy who hooked you up with 3 gigs at MGM? Urkel. Tell me how many.
Miller Boyette.
Yes.
The Miller Boyette shows.
Yeah. How did you get hooked
I
up
just
with
ran
them?
I ran the table, just like I ran the table a few years ago on all the Fox shows. Just suddenly I rattled them all off, and it was either because the casting directors all were passing my headshot around, and I knocked them out. But at the time, I knocked out all those
Tell me
Miller
the 3
Boyette. So what
shows
was
again?
it? Hogan Family.
Yep.
Doctor was that one of them? It was Family Matters. Doogie Howser.
Doogie Howser.
And I think Hogan or Coach. Hogan
Look
Coach.
at you, dude.
And I think Hogan Family. Hogan Family was the Valerie Harper spin-off.
Right,
I think it was Miller Boyette with Jason Bateman and Lisa Rinna. I worked.
I did extra work 3 times in Hollywood, and Hogan's Family was one of them.
Oh yeah.
It took place in a cheeseburger place.
All right on. So do you remember who you worked with?
No, the guy who. Did you ever see the movie? What's that movie with Kevin Costner, Fandango? Did you ever see Fandango?
Fandango.
Yeah,
I know. I know the film. I'm trying to think.
He was the guy who did the parachutes. He packed the parachutes.
Wow.
Anyway,
No.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Not
Okay.
Steve Whitting.
I don't know. He could
Okay.
be.
Okay.
Very well
All
could
right.
be.
All right.
So
Very
you
cool.
do those.
Yep. That was about as much as I really did comedy. Because like I said, I always thought that was something that you did naturally very well. I found the sitcoms. I got cast a lot as kind of a big dumb jock.
Sure, hey man,
And that
whatever
was-
gets us there.
But it was a tough thing for me to slide into because it's casting directors giving
Which is
you
how you worked with Troy
Froman.
Froman.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say it.
Troy. We were a doctor, but at least he was the dumb one in that
Yes,
one.
yes,
at least I
yes.
got to be
Right.
intellectually superior to Troy, which Troy,
He said a funny story
not
about
that challenging, did he?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
But when you saw him for Joker 2 and the makeup trailer, you go, how in the hell did you book this gig?
No, I didn't.
Well, he said you gave him a look that
Yeah.
he felt you said that.
Oh well, that's it. That's him. That's
Exactly.
him being having a chip on his shoulder.
Well, he's
I
a
love
beautiful
Troy.
man, beautiful man.
Yeah, we had doctor, but I tell you, when a casting director, maybe if they don't really understand what actors need, the note, can you play him dumber, is a really tough note.
It really
It's
is.
really because people that are kind of quote unquote dumb don't think they are.
Right.
Actors need a little something other than can you be dumber, and I got that note a lot, and it was tough. But I managed to book a few. My character on Coach was a knucklehead. My character on Hogan Family was a knucklehead.
That's great. Those are great shows to be knuckleheads on. Okay, John.
I didn't say no, obviously.
Well, that's good. So you're working from 90 to 93 to 94, and because I love studying a good IMDb page.
Uh-oh. I know what the next one's going to be. Hit me with it.
Well, hang on.
You notice a gap.
So I noticed a gap.
Yeah.
Between 94 and 2000, I believe, on TV, and 93 to 2006 in the movies.
Good. I love it. This is a great
So
question.
tell me what is
Why?
going on there.
I shifted my focus to directing, man. I really wanted to be a director, Clint, and I had a couple of projects that I wrote I put a lot of time. I put together a spec reel to direct commercials. You probably didn't know that I directed some commercials. I directed a campaign for ESPN. I directed a campaign for Comcast.
I don't remember
directed
being
for
called
some-
in on those.
I hate to say it, it was non-union. I know, man. That's what you do when you're. But
I'm done here.
I know, man. But as an
Hey,
actor,
I get it,
I
dude.
wasn't working off the card. But there are non-union actors available to you.
Yeah, of course, dude. Of course, I get it, man. Go.
And if you, what you don't see on IMDb are the commercials. I booked a ton of commercials
Yeah.
during that time, so it wasn't as if I didn't have revenue coming in.
Okay, but hang on a second. I didn't know you were going to say the director, but I knew you booked a lot of commercials then. I was also booking a lot of commercials then,
know.
and I'm not saying that to brag.
No,
I'm
the
saying
truth
that
is the truth. We were rattling them off.
We were, and I wasn't going for my theatrical career like I moved out
Yeah.
here to do because, dude, all I had to do was go book a gig, and
Yeah.
the residuals came in.
Much better money.
Much better money, and I'm just waiting for the next phone call to
Yeah.
go do an audition for a commercial and not going for theatrical.
Did you
Anyway.
have a decent theatrical agent at that time?
No, not really.
Yeah, that was the problem.
Yeah.
And you probably could have taken what I would have advised back
I
then
know,
is
dude, I already know.
what I would get to that manager, that agent, and say, "There's a reason you're booking in commercials.
Yeah.
That reason applies to film and TV. So let's get after it."
Well, but you remember there was also a time people who booked commercially weren't really booking theatrically, and they didn't really
There weren't
like
many.
the two.
There weren't many of us that did both. You know, the actor that I thought was doing something similar to me when I was really successfully straddling both lanes was McCorkle. Kevin McCorkle and I seem to be kind of going
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth a lot between commercial bookings and TV
I
film
gotta
bookings.
get Kevin McCorkle on this. He has been around and he has done some great work.
Yep, and another really generous, really thoughtful guy. He'd give you some great
Yeah,
gold.
yeah.
So that time was spent. I also was raising my kids, booking commercials, and really wanting to be a director. And I'm not saying trying to be, because I was directing. I directed some commercials. I had a small company that believed in me as their performance director for storytelling. When she had to fold up her tent, I wasn't able to catch on with anyone else. It's so hard to
Yeah,
get in
I
with.
bet.
You're,
Yeah.
even at low budget stuff, Clint, with small companies, I was bidding against Spike Lee, the Coen brothers. I mean,
Yep, yep.
they'll go for jobs with $100,000 budget.
Of course, it's easy for
because,
them.
Yeah, it's 2 days of work, and they'll get their rate, and they'll spend half the money on the director. I'm bidding against guys like that on jobs where I'm going to make $1,000 a day. I wasn't getting a lot of gigs, and it was very competitive. So I decided that wasn't worth putting my energy into. Was commercial directing. My film projects didn't take me to the promised land, so I got back in. I found an agent that could get me co-stars. It was Daniel Hoff.
Okay, totally.
A woman named Nancy Apt was fantastic. And you know who picked me up off the scrap heap? It was really cool because we had a lot of similarities in the types of roles that we played. His name was Charlie Haid, H-A-I-D, Charles Haid, from he was on Hill Street Blues. Big Irish cop on Hill Street Blues.
Okay.
And he was directing an episode of NYPD Blue, which is a favorite show of mine. And when I went in for the audition, he looked at me like I was a brother. He's looking at my resume, and I'm standing in front of him, and this is for a really good recurring role on NYPD Blue. And I haven't worked, like you said, 6 or 7 years in TV and film. And he's looking at my resume, and he says, "John, what is this, the short list? What have you been doing?" He says, where's that? And he looked at me, and I just said, "Hey, Charlie, man, I've been raising my kids." And he ended up booking me. And you know what it was? I'm going to tell you what he ended up telling me once we got to the set. He always felt like he owed me one because my Doogie Howser episode was directed by Charlie Haid. And much like with Eric Bruscotter and Michael, as I went for the lead bully, but I got offered the backup bully.
Sure.
Charlie Haid did the same thing to me, for me on Doogie Howser. I went for the lead bully, and they offered me the backup. And Charlie Haid pulled me aside while we were shooting and says, "I owe you one, kid." 8 years later, he paid it forward on NYPD Blue.
I love it.
And that was the beginning of my new TV career, was NYPD Blue, because Charlie Haid honored his promise to me that he owed me one for taking that small role on Doogie Howser. How cool is that?
I love it.
And I think what he dug was he saw a lot of me and him,
Yeah.
the same roles, the same kind of guy. Big Irish-looking, blue-collar cop.
I know who you're talking about now that you
He
say that.
ended up casting me in an amazing double guest star on Criminal Minds 10 years after NYPD Blue. So 8 years after Doogie Howser, he throws me this great bone. 10 years after NYPD Blue, he casts me in this killer. It's the most money I've ever made on a TV show was Criminal Minds, because I did a 2-part guest star as a Canadian police inspector, Jeff Treadwell.
Of course.
Got to work with Joe Montana and that whole group.
Yeah.
So, and that was a Charlie Haid job. How cool is that?
I love it. How many people in Hollywood have hooked you up like that? This list has to be short.
It's short but significant, and you don't forget them.
Yep, I got the same list.
And what you do is, what I do is, I use them in my storytelling and in my teaching as a way of reinforcing to young actors that are starting out. Is relationships are everything. You're not auditioning for the job that seemingly is right in front of you. I mean, obviously you are. These are the sides. This is the role. This is the breakdown. This is the opportunity. But what you're always auditioning for is relationships with the people that are potentially hiring you, whether it's the casting directors, the showrunners, the producers, the writers.
Yep.
You're auditioning for all of them for everything that they're doing.
Yep.
And not just today,
Wow. That's a good
but
one,
2
John.
years from now, 3 years from now. You're putting your work in front of them, and even though this job may not go your way, and trust me, we know 95% of them, 95% of them are not going to go your way.
So true.
But doing good work consistently, they're going to remember you, and you just have to stay consistently trained and fresh and alive and active and always reading a book. You need to always be reading
What book
something.
is this?
Fantastic. Always crashing in the same car. If you love 1960s and 70s cinema, this guy, Matthew Spector's dad, was an agent. He's still alive, but an agent at CIA. So he grew up in Beverly Hills, surrounded by the industry. He became a writer himself. But it's basically his take on some people that he became familiar with from the 60s and 70s and 80s in Hollywood, and why their careers were the way they were. But it's a time capsule piece. His writing is exceptional. My point is, whether it's this book or a biography on Montgomery Clift, or studying the work of Stanley Kubrick, or going to art museums and understanding why Edward Hopper is so significant to cinematography, and why Rembrandt was the original cinematographer. And look at Night Watch and realize that Rembrandt understood lighting better than anyone, and that Paul Thomas Anderson studies Rembrandt to understand lighting. Go to museums, read, watch films, be a daily student of this craft. That's going to make you interesting when you meet people and when you're in front of the camera, so that your relationship building is always in progression and you're always evolving forward in your art. And the only way to do that is by staying in it every day.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
That's what we do, man.
That is what we do. Okay, Let's say we got about 12 minutes left on this, okay? You do all of that, and then you're working, but then you want to start taking Hollywood into your own hands again, right? Is this true after all those theatrical bookings? You want to take Hollywood into your...
Well, finally I'm ready to make films. You know, I told you that hiatus that I, self-imposed hiatus where I was making films and I admitted they didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I directed some commercials, but my film projects, which I put money into, man, my wife at the time and we sold vehicles to pay for projects. We went into debt to pay for projects that did not reach completion. You gotta lick your wounds with that stuff. That stuff's tough, but if you really want to be a filmmaker, you have to keep going. And of course, things changed dramatically with digital, where it became more affordable to do things. I was shooting 35 millimeter back then. Talk about mortgaging your house to buy film.
Yeah, that is crazy, man.
So I never stopped in imagining and in manifesting that I'm not here.
Do you manifest
all the time?
How do you do that?
I spend very specific. I spend time visualizing, and if that sounds like a David Lynch meditative thing, it's not as concentrated and as structured as that. What I do is everywhere I go, even right now, I'm looking through here and I'm seeing these two women walk up and they're framed by that bar. That's cinematic to me. So I'm borrowing ideas from everything I see. So I'm constantly looking around and saying, what could I shoot at the farmer's market? How could I take this and make this something? And if I do that enough, Clint, or when I do that enough, 18 months from now, I may find myself at the farmer's market shooting something and setting up this camera right here to shoot through there, a movie screen within a movie screen. You see how that looks like a screen?
It's perfect, dude.
See, so am I sitting and am I focusing and saying I'm going to make this movie? No, but I'm clocking it and I'm putting it into my subconscious as imagery. And everywhere I look, I see cinema. So I manifest things just by virtue of putting myself in places and visualizing what their potential is for my storytelling.
I dig it.
Right? So when I really started to turn my attention back to it, it was right. I know you want to talk about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Right at about that.
No, we're good.
Right at about Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 2014. I wrote a web series called The Reveal, and I said, okay, I'm gonna shoot this like a film, but I'm gonna release it. I'm gonna unfold it in increments, in 7 and 8 minute episodes, but it's going to be a 100-page script. So it's going to be a feature film broken down into, let's say, 10 to 12 webisodes. And
webisodes at that time, people didn't really know what this was.
Yeah, we're talking 2015, so they were out there. You could find them. You could even there were even categories in festivals.
Right.
But it was a viable thing. I had no delusions I was going to make money. As a matter of fact, the actors that I reached out to, now here's where you could say, I don't know why you weren't cast, but I reached out to X amount of actors, and in my pitch to them, I said, Clint, I said, I'm reaching out to you because I think you fit this world that I'm writing. I'm writing this web series. Here's what I'm doing. I have no delusions this is going to make me any money, but it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be film noir. It's going to have a comic book aspect to it. The storytelling is going to be, I'm going to write you, and I'm talking to each specific actor I'm reaching out, I'm going to write you something really unique, and here's what I can guarantee you. You're going to come away from this with a bunch of new relationships of actors in Hollywood that you're going to become friends with that'll last you a lifetime. So I can't pay you. Not only can I not pay you, I'm asking everyone for $500. Some of them came up with it, some of them didn't.
Sure.
But enough of them came up with 500 or 300 where suddenly I had $6,000.
And why wouldn't you, if you're an actor wanting to get ahead of yourself, why wouldn't you pay that $300 to get on it?
500,
so
whatever it was, 100.
Yeah, exactly.
Investing, people spend 5 times that on headshots that they don't need.
Absolutely.
So my whole thing was, here's what you're investing in: relationships.
The most important thing, which is how you got the NYPD Blue.
Exactly. So that dovetails to that beautifully. But what completing The Reveal did for me, and getting it into festivals and completing what I set out to, I said, now I'm confident I can make a movie. And from that I wrote my next film, and I decided now I'm going to always be making a film. I'm just now doing the festival circuit on my new film, Everyone Asked About You, which is my 3rd feature, and thankfully, and I can proudly say my first that did not come out of my pocket.
Nice.
I'm not going to tell you where the money came from, because it would take a whole nother a whole nother one of your episodes to explain how we financed this film, but it's a fascinating story. The budget was under $100,000. All 3 of my films have been under $100,000. It sounds like that's a minuscule budget, but that's still money. That's still actual money that people get paid.
Yep.
So I've made 3 features now. My current film is called Everyone Asked About You, and it's really crushing it on the festival circuit. We
The
just
first
ran
film
for
was Custody Road.
Custody Road, and then Rosebud Lane.
Rosebud Lane.
Shot in North Carolina.
Which movie had something to do with something that your father or grandfather wrote?
Everyone Asked About You is taken from a short story that my dad wrote.
Okay.
And I'm just lifting the title. It has
Awesome.
nothing to do with the
Beautiful.
story.
Beautiful.
Rosebud Lane was dedicated to my mother and my grandmother because they
Okay.
were world-class single moms.
Okay.
And the film has a strong single mother at its core. And Rosebud Lane was about my love of cinema. It's about a father and son connecting for the first time, where the little boy grows up in a small farmhouse on a little road in North Carolina called Rosebud Lane. And he grows up in this little town where no one in the community looks at Rosebud Lane and thinks Citizen Kane. That's just the name of a street.
Right.
But this little boy loves cinema. Doesn't know why. His mom's a waitress at the diner. Lives in this little house on the end of a farm, right? But he loves film. Well, lo and behold, his biological father is a filmmaker out in Hollywood. He was in North Carolina for a short period of time, had a one-night stand with a waitress. They had a baby. She didn't ask for his permission, so she let him off the hook. She's going to raise the child alone. So he goes on with his life in Hollywood as a 50-year-old filmmaker. As we know, there's a lot of people in Hollywood who have decided to have no children and pursue their art. So the dad, at the beginning of the film, gets his card from a boy who's never met. And his wife is there saying, I didn't know you had a kid. So now the dad goes across country to meet his son for the first time, and they connect immediately on love of cinema.
That's
How
awesome.
great.
That is great.
So that's Rosebud Lane. It's on Amazon. It's on Tubi. It's on Freebie. I really recommend you watch it. Tyne Steckline plays the lead female. Brad Abram, Lucia Tarantino, Josh Doherty's in it. Paul Pape is in it. Wes Robertson. Fantastic cast. I'm very proud of that film. But that was about my love of cinema. Everyone Asked About You is the flip side of the coin. It's what I hate about our industry, which is predators. It's how women and children have been treated in Hollywood since the beginning. So Everyone Asked About You is a dark story about kind of the Harvey Weinsteins and how women are put in compromising positions to advance their careers, and how these Nickelodeon children are not supervised, and it's a reckless environment for children. That's what the film is about.
Beautiful stuff.
And
I mean, not that story, but you know what I'm saying. It's a beautiful that you have a reason why you're making it. There's a backstory.
And this one, because of that cause, a significant politician has taken our film under her wing. Her name is Fiona Ma. She's our California State Treasurer. She's running for Lieutenant Governor. She has a cameo in my film.
Nice.
And she's been promoting the film. She just got us on a big screen up in San Francisco for a week. And as of today, we hired a major PR firm to do a push for us, and we're really gunning to get the Indie Spirit Awards, right, which is the indie film equivalent to the Oscars. They have a carve-out called the Cassavetes Award. John Cassavetes is a hero of mine.
Of course.
Obviously, they have a Cassavetes carve-out. You have to be under $1 million, which we clearly are, and you have to run on a big screen for a week. So we've met the criteria. Now we're hiring a PR firm, and we're really gunning to get a Cassavetes nomination.
John, go.
Thank you. That's my story, and I'm
okay.
Today I'm sticking with it.
Let's say we have 7 minutes left.
Lucky number 7.
We're going to do some quick answers.
Go ahead.
Tell me about Joker 2.
The job of a lifetime, and one of the major disappointments of my lifetime, in that it was torpedoed. I don't know why it was torpedoed. It's a fantastic film. It was a fantastic job. I worked 2.5 months on it. I got to work side by side with Brendan Gleeson.
Yeah, you sure did.
I got to go toe to toe with Joaquin, the other actors, George and Mac, the director Todd Phillips, the Lady Gaga. We overlapped, but we did have one day on set together, and she could not have been sweeter. I think it's a fantastic work of art. I think it's high art. I think it's the perfect counter to the first Joker, which was bleak and dark and anarchist driven, and Joker Folie à Deux is about love, and it's about love conquering all. And I think that people decided in advance that it was not what they were in the mood for, or not what they expected, and it should have done better, and I'm very disappointed.
Will that movie be bigger 10 years from now?
Great question. I think it will. My comparison, I think, is Moulin Rouge, which I think Moulin Rouge, when it came out, I think a lot of people looked at it and thought it was hard to wrap their head around it. And I think now it's a classic, and it runs midnight showings at theaters. I think Joker Folie à Deux is going to find an audience over time, and a lot of critics are going to have to double back and realize that they were watching it through a lens of expectations, or maybe they just wanted to shoot it down. but I think it's going to be. I think a lot of people are going to double back and realize that they missed the boat on Joker. I think it's.
Yeah, I think you're
it's
right.
fantastic.
Okay, another thing really quick. Tell me, you were doing plays? Mm-hmm. You were doing
I'm
a play?
directing one right now that I'm very proud of called Nylon. We opened May 2nd at the Zephyr Theater.
Is that with your class that you teach?
No, it's actually it's a young lady named Melanie Smith who I directed in a play called Mauritius last year. Mauritius came to me through a former student, Freddie Gerlando. So Mauritius, Teresa Rebeck play, just really excellent. We did it at Theater 68 last year. And that's how I got to know Melanie. Melanie brought me this play, and none of my students are from my studio are in Nylon, but really, really great play by Sofia Alvarez.
Okay.
And I'd love for you to come as our guest.
Thank you.
May 2nd we open.
Okay, tell me really quick about the class you teach.
My Lacy Group Acting Studio is I'm gonna say it's invite only, just because that's the only. I don't advertise. The only way to find my class is through word of mouth or hearing about it here, and then reaching out to Clint. And Clint reaches out to me, and then we meet. It's a scene study class. It's Meisner. It's intense. We do a lot of text analysis. I do teach audition technique. I also coach one-on-one for auditions. I'm available for that. Instagram is Laceman34 if you're an Instagram guy. LACEMAN 34. And my studio, I'm very proud of it. 10 years now. 10 years.
And you got some good people. I see your crew, and you got a good crew.
Yeah, because I've had a couple alumni that are ones have gone on to major film stardom. That's Jody, and Justin Cortez Johnson is really kicking butt. Justin Johnson Cortez, is kicking butt in TV. So yeah, I've got some great actors in my studio. Fantastic.
Give me a 30-second story of you doing a play and things changing from that play.
Would you believe it? Doing Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, a Pulitzer Prize-winning play in a little town called Newhall, of all places, up in Santa Clarita, 81-seat theater, and we were doing a really, really, really unique, streamlined version of Tennessee Williams' masterpiece. I'm giving a performance as Big Daddy that I know for a fact has never been seen. Not at all the Burl Ives kind of Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders Big Daddy.
Yeah.
And a pair of jackasses showed up and decided to heckle my co-star Anton Troy and throw a couple of homophobic shots at him. And by the time they shouted a second time at him, and I was on stage with him,
while doing the play.
Okay. In character, I addressed the heckler and challenged him, and he stood up and basically challenged me. So without missing a beat, I walked off the stage and confronted him, and a little melee broke out, and no security came in. There was no security at all available. No stage manager came to anyone's rescue. It was actually a big filmmaker in the back of the house, happened to be gay and a friend of our leading man, and he took it very personally that this guy was yelling what he was yelling at my co-star. And Tim Sullivan came lunging down from the back row, and he's 6'5", enormous guy, and he really bailed me out because he came in and grabbed the heckler and dragged him out of the theater, and then I was able to kind of slink back as if I hadn't done anything, even though I'd the one that basically started it by going into the house. And once the melee was now happening in the lobby, I actually said to the audience, do you want me to get this shit back on track? And they said, yeah, stay. And I said, where do you want me to start? I said, you want me to go back and start the monologue about Big Mama again? Yeah, start the monologue again. I said, all right, you guys sit down. I'm going to get this play back on track. And you could hear the ruckus out in the lobby, right?
Yeah.
I go back on stage. We kind of like almost rewound the play about 3 minutes and started again. And there's a lot more to the story. The reason the story went international news, Clint, was because they fired me. If they hadn't fired me, it might have just been something that kind of had a little blurb and,
absolutely.
A heckler gets approached by an actor. But the fact that it was heckler, actor bounces heckler and the producers fire him became a zeitgeist lightning rod moment.
It was an international story, man.
It was. Japan I have Japanese headlines. I have Australian headlines, obviously all over the big cities.
Good for you, man. I'm glad you did that.
Thank you, man. It's one of those things. You'd have done the same thing probably. It's something that happens in the moment. I can tell you, I'm one of the few people that when Will Smith went up and slapped Chris Rock, I'm not condoning, and I'm not even agreeing. He obviously stepped in it, but I understood what he was doing. He was in a zone where he almost had an out of body experience.
Yeah.
Because he had to do something.
Is that how
for his
you felt
wife.
out of the body?
I felt out of body. I felt very much like I have no choice but to do the right thing. So much so that I could have stepped off the stage and approached him. I walked out the fake stage door of my house. So I was clearly still in Big Daddy character. That tells you something, because I had no time to think about that.
Yeah.
But the fact that I didn't just break character and jump off, I think reinforces that I was so into Big Daddy's protection of the moment.
Yep, you were in it.
I walked off,
were in the moment.
and then I took off my vest like John Wayne as I approached him, which is what Big Daddy would do.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, John.
Method acting.
I literally, we could go on for 2 hours and we still wouldn't be done. Your stories are fantastic. Now I know why people in Hawaii were coming back up to you asking things.
Man.
I'm gonna look at my notes really quick to see if I missed anything.
I'll finish this coffee that you brought me. Thank you.
Zodiac. Who was the Zodiac killer?
Oh, well, it's Arthur Lee Allen, man.
Okay.
Played by John Carroll Lynch. But I played Bob Stevenson and I each play suspects.
Yep.
And I got to play. Well, I had the misfortune of playing the character that basically torments and tortures Ione Sky on the highway.
Yeah.
And tell her that I'm going to throw her baby out the window. I saw Ione 3 weeks ago at the Aero Theater because she's got a book out. And
She sure does. I've been seeing her.
Say Everything, it's called. And they played Say Anything on the Aero, and I was able to raise my hand in the Q&A and say, Ione, we go way back.
Oh,
We had a
awesome.
moment in
That's
2007 on the highway with David Fincher, and I had to terrorize you. And it was PTSD, man. Fincher's amazing. That was an amazing gig.
Okay, Die Hard 3. You were in Die Hard 3.
One day with Bruce Willis, but you know what he said to me?
What?
Is for those of you who movie stars. There's very few movie stars at any given time. Can we agree on that?
Yeah,
very
absolutely,
few.
absolutely.
Movie stars at any given time. We maybe have 6 or 8 of them. Everyone else is just successful film actors. For instance, Gary Oldman, not a movie star. He's a great film actor, but they're not making him.
Right.
He's not a movie star. Denzel Washington's a movie star.
Yep.
Bruce Willis was a movie star. I walk up, I'm on set. I'm playing. I got a role as an EMT. I've got 2 lines of dialogue. When they bring me to him, you know what he says to me?
What's that?
Bruce Willis, good to have you on the big picture.
I love it, dude.
Good to have
Makes
you on the.
all the difference in the world.
Good to have you on the big picture.
Oh, I love that. That's good.
I'll never forget it, man.
Okay.
I love that.
I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
I think we covered
Versace.
everything.
Did you see? Have you ever seen Versace?
Yeah, I was in that and I got cut out.
Oh.
I
No wonder you didn't want to talk about it.
Yes, I wanted to talk about it.
So it's my most proud.
You
TV,
did excellent in that.
The TV work I'm most proud of.
Yes,
because they took the deaths seriously. They took the lives
American Crime
that were
Story.
ruined. American Crime Story, the assassination of Gianni Versace. I'm in
Very good
episodes
in it.
4 and 9.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you got cut out, man.
Yeah, it was the season finale.
Yeah, I'm in that episode.
Oh, you son
I'm
of-
sorry to hear it, man.
Okay.
Hey, we've all been cut out of
I
things.
know
I
it's-
was cut out of City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan. Okay?
Okay, John, we're going to pick this up
I would like that.
in another year from now, if not sooner, because I loved everything you said today.
Thank you, Clint.
I like to keep it under an hour.
Yep.
I don't know why.
Great
but
questions, by the way.
Thank you so much. John, anything else I need to know or they need to know about you before we shut it down?
I love people.
You do, dude. You're awesome.
Relationships are the currency of what we do. Maintaining friendships, valuing everybody that you work with, whether it's a stage play, something I'm in charge of, or whether I just went up and shot a TV show up in Vancouver just last week as a guest star, and still every time I work, I make a point of knowing who I'm working with, who the people are, who's doing the props, who's the script supervisor, knowing them by name, relationships, treating
good
everyone in
stuff
this
right there.
industry with respect. So maybe that's not it comes as a surprise, but it's all about people and it's all about relationships.
Amen, brother.
And I hope you get a chance to see my new film, Everyone Asked About You. I'm very
Watch
proud
that.
of it.
And one last favor. Tell everybody bye for me.
Goodbye, everybody.